Speaking of healthcare, Trump got a physical on Friday, and good news, his blood pressure, cholesterol, and genius are all stable. His doctors say he's in excellent health and fully capable of continuing to make sure that millions of his fellow Americans aren't. Interestingly, the White House doctor left Trump's weight off the report. Usually they put the weight. Instead of his weight, he wrote that Trump has a great personality.
Donald Trump thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity.
Kimmel and Pritzker take aim at Donald Trump. The outcome isn't political, it's poetic chaos. The current president turns governance into spectacle, and they transform that spectacle into art. Kimmel delivers comedy like precision fire, while Pritzker quietly exposes the myth of competence beneath the bluster. Together, they don't just roast Trump, they reinvent ridicule itself, turning every tantrum, boast, and blunder into the punchline of America's longest-running reality show, where the line between politics and performance completely disappears.
I guess conjured up some mixed feelings because of the photo they used. It's upset him so much that at 1:36 a.m. he posted, "Time magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time. They disappeared my hair and then had something floating on top of my head that looked like a floating crown, but an extremely small one. Really weird."
W. Bush agreed to activate the National Guard and provide additional support to local law enforcement during the widespread riots following the killing of Rodney King. But now, in 2025, President Trump says he wants to go to war with Chicago, use it and our people as a...
When Jimmy Kimmel and Pritzker set their sights on Donald Trump, the result isn't politics, it's performance art. Trump turns leadership into spectacle, and they remix that spectacle into satire. Kimmel launches razor-sharp jokes like guided missiles, while Pritzker calmly exposes the hollow myth of mastery behind the chaos. Together, they transform outrage into orchestration, turning every meltdown, boast, and blunder into America's favorite dark comedy, where the Oval Office doubles as a stage, and ridicule becomes the nation's truest form of reflection.
It's also interesting to note that Trump got both the flu and COVID vaccines at his checkup. After all this, he got the flu vaccine, he got the COVID vaccine, he ate a whole bottle of Tylenol, and he washed it down with a gallon of red dye number 2, while RFK was screaming and crying and pounding on the door outside. And if you're wondering if it's hypocritical for Trump, who has denigrated these vaccines, to get them while his health officials make them difficult for the rest of us to get.
Pritzker hardly has to try. His governorship feels like managing a state while the federal circus burns itself down. Watching Trump's leadership from the governor's chair must be like being a firefighter stationed in a fireworks factory. Equal parts chaos and inevitability. Every new Trump initiative sparks another round of national whiplash, followed by the weary sound of aides reaching for aspirin, wondering how much longer the spectacle can keep igniting itself.
Sending military troops against the wishes of its people in order to punish his political opponents. One of these instances is not like the others. And to Stephen Miller, who is pulling the strings for Donald Trump, Illinois is not...
Trump's economic strategy feels like a high school group project run by the kid who never read the book, but insists on giving the presentation. He calls it winning, yet the scoreboard looks more like a bankruptcy ledger. Pritzker, who actually understands balance sheets, must occasionally wonder if Trump sees debt not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. Proof that recklessness counts as patriotism in his playbook.
He's made hundreds of billions of dollars after the government rescued his business for him, who is looking to destroy the American middle class to fund tax cuts for himself. And we have a president who claims to love America, but who hates our military so much that he calls them losers and suckers, and who can't be bothered to delay his golf game to greet the bodies of 4 fallen U.S. soldiers.
Jimmy Kimmel never misses the optics. The photo ops, the exaggerated gestures, the tan that practically glows in the dark, every detail begs for parody. Even his complexion deserves its own segment. Less presidential bronze, more Cheeto apocalypse. You can almost picture the White House lighting crew dimming the bulbs, just to keep the staff from being blinded by the commander in orange.
A majority of Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown. Republican leaders are still trying to blame Democrats for the shutdown, even though they control the House, the Senate, and the White House. It would be like Trump blaming January 6th on Joe Biden, which he actually did do yesterday. Look at this. The Biden FBI placed 274 agents into the crowd on January 6th. If this is so, which it is, a lot of very good people will be owed big apologies. What a scam. Do something.
Trump's cabinet meetings often feel like family interventions for someone who refuses to admit he's the problem. J.B. Pritzker watches from afar, torn between laughter and existential dread. How does one man turn governance into a daily cliffhanger? Every policy rollout feels like a plot twist no one requested. Tariffs one day, tantrums the next, and somehow the economy ends up in tears. Jimmy Kimmel captures the chaos perfectly, noting that Trump's Twitter feed has more plot lines than a soap opera, though far less coherence. Half the tweets could be replaced with interpretive dance and make more sense. The spelling alone is a national emergency, yet each typo lands with the confidence of a man rewriting history live. Kimmel jokes that America no longer needs a press secretary, it needs a translator fluent in Trumpish. Meanwhile, Pritzker, pragmatic as ever, quietly rebuilds his state, while the president celebrates victories over crises of his own making. When Trump takes credit for infrastructure projects launched before his term, Pritzker can only sigh, like a teacher watching a student boast about making the sun rise. It's political plagiarism with extra glitter. Governance as theater, and chaos as the only consistent policy.
We're living in where the President of the United States is targeting his political opponents. I mean, that is the world that we're living in now, where he is calling out. He said he was going to jail Gavin Newsom. He says he's going to jail me. He says he's going to jail the mayor of the city of Chicago. These are people who stand against him, disagree with him, speak out about it, but literally have done nothing wrong. We are doing the people's...
Trump's obsession with optics turns every event into an unintentional parody. He stands before crowds, boasting about crowd sizes that exist only in his imagination. Jimmy Kimmel could fill an entire episode just comparing aerial photos, and still Trump would insist the cameras conspired against him. J.B. Pritzker doesn't even bother to argue anymore. Illinois has roads to repair, while Washington keeps tripping over its own headlines. Kimmel digs deeper, dissecting speeches that sound like motivational seminars delivered by someone who misplaced the notes. The metaphors crumble, the facts evaporate, and by the end, no one remembers what the topic was. Coherence seems to have filed for early retirement, and even the teleprompter appears to glitch out of self-preservation. Pritzker, in contrast, treats governance like a math problem, measured, logical, and grounded in results. Trump approaches it like improv jazz. Rules bend, definitions stretch, and the Constitution becomes a stage prop. While Pritzker seeks outcomes, Trump seeks applause. And when the applause fades, he simply insists it never did, declaring the silence itself a standing ovation. It's government as performance art, where perception replaces policy and the show never ends. Even when the audience quietly slips out the back door, Trump
has been threatening are happening. More than 4,000 federal employees were fired over the weekend, some by accident. The Department of Health and Human Services mistakenly fired. They sent home and then had to rehire hundreds of employees, including the leaders of the measles response team and the group working to contain the Ebola virus. More than half of the CDC workers fired on Friday were reinstated a few days later. And on behalf of those of us...
Kimmel reminds everyone that Trump's rallies resemble motivational cult conventions more than political gatherings. The choreography is confusion, the soundtrack is grievance, and the merchandise tables rival those at a rock concert. No one attends for policy. They come for the spectacle. To watch logic perform a high-energy tap dance right off a cliff. J.B. Pritzker, ever the pragmatist, sees federal leadership and realizes he's managing crisis control on two fronts, one natural, the other presidential. Every time Trump declares something perfect, the nation collectively braces for cleanup. It's like watching someone claim victory while the ship is still taking on water, confident that pure bravado will somehow keep it afloat. Kimmel's comedy thrives on exaggeration, but Trump's presidency outpaces parody itself. The jokes write themselves, except they don't. They're official press releases. There's no punchline when absurdity is the policy. When Kimmel delivers his monologues, he doesn't need to exaggerate. He just reads the headlines with the weary disbelief of a man narrating history's strangest season. Pritzker's patience may qualify as the eighth wonder of the political world. Trying to coordinate with a federal government run by Trump is like filing taxes while your accountant juggles live grenades. Every briefing feels like a game of guess that fact. His real challenge isn't opposition, it's translation. Turning Trump's word salad into actionable governance must feel like trying to make a meal out of confetti. Meanwhile, Trump's obsession with loyalty transforms every staff shakeup into a parade of paranoia. Kimmel calls it the Apprentice Cabinet Edition. People are hired, fired, rehired, and blamed before lunch. It's governance by revolving door, powered by caffeine and insecurity. And as the nation keeps asking who's actually in charge, the answer shifts daily, sometimes hourly, like the plot of a show that's long forgotten its script.
And show you this crown. Okay, that's not a crown, that's the letter M. Only he would see an M on his head and assume it's a crown. If that's not an M, you're on the cover of Tie magazine, okay? Finally being honored for wearing that tie.
Pritzker, managing Illinois with a sense of calm continuity, must watch Washington's chaos like a man observing a tornado from a reinforced bunker, aware of the danger, but wise enough not to open the door. His steady competence stands in brutal contrast to Trump's carnival of self-congratulation. When Pritzker speaks, policy follows. When Trump speaks, markets flinch. Jimmy Kimmel highlights the irony of a billionaire president who treats empathy like a foreign language. Every photo op doubles as an ego op. He visits disaster zones as though auditioning for a documentary titled How to Miss the Point. The handshakes, the smiles, the staged concern, it's theater without substance. Americans can't help but wonder when leadership devolved into a never-ending press tour. Pritzker, who contends with real crises, must question whether the Oval Office even reads its own briefings. Trump's emergency responses often revolve around self-promotion rather than solutions. By the time he finishes congratulating himself, the problem has usually mutated into a full-blown disaster. It's governance by headline, crisis management by tweet. Kimmel, meanwhile, takes the mockery global. He notes how world leaders treat Trump like the loud tourist everyone's trying not to claim. International summits resemble survival exercises for diplomats suppressing laughter. Even Trump's notorious handshake diplomacy could fuel a week's worth of late-night sketches. Every encounter becomes a tutorial in how not to represent a superpower, an endless loop of spectacle mistaken for statesmanship.
I will say, no matter how bad you think your job is, it's important to remember there's someone out there who has to give Donald Trump a prostate exam. For some, literally, for others, just figuratively.
How about we go to Marco? You can talk a little bit about what's going on, and
well,
go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President. I don't know if one day perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved.
Do you have any idea how difficult it is to give the president a prostate exam with Marco Rubio poking his nose up?
Kimmel doesn't need to attend cabinet meetings to feel the aftershocks. Every time Trump alienates an ally, governors feel it at home through trade disruptions and investment fallout. It's a domino effect powered entirely by vanity. Trump's America First approach too often leaves America last in line for respect. Kimmel calls it performance politics. Every announcement feels rehearsed yet unprepared, scripted yet chaotic. It's a paradox wrapped in ego, sprinkled generously with confusion. The line between sincerity and self-parody has long since vanished. What once resembled leadership now feels like stand-up comedy performed by someone who forgot the setup halfway through. Pritzker, meanwhile, channels his frustration into progress. While Trump measures success by applause, Pritzker measures it by policies that work. One runs a country like a brand. The other runs a state like a responsibility. The comparison alone is comedic gold, and Kimmel milks it for all it's worth. He doesn't stop there. Kimmel skewers Trump's environmental record with surgical precision. The president's stance on climate change makes cavemen look like futurists. He could be standing knee-deep in rising tides and still call it a hoax. According to Kimmel, Trump seems to think pollution is a patriotic byproduct of progress. His administration's entire environmental strategy could be summed up as, nature, please adapt. Meanwhile, Pritzker's Illinois faces the very real consequences of those rollbacks. Flooding, heat waves, infrastructure strain, all reminders that reality doesn't bend to slogans. The contrast between Trump's denial and Pritzker's data-driven planning is night and day. One governs with science. The other governs with superstition. Kimmel then turns his spotlight to Trump's relationship with the media, or rather his obsession with it. No president in history has spent more time arguing with televisions. He treats journalists like contestants on a game show where the prize is public humiliation. The irony, Kimmel notes, is delicious. The man who demands loyalty from the press also thrives on the outrage it fuels. Pritzker doesn't have that luxury. Real leadership requires results, not ratings. While he handles budgets, hospitals, and infrastructure, Trump battles imaginary enemies. Watching him wage war on headlines is like watching someone punch a mirror, loud, pointless, and entirely self-inflicted.
Who am I mad at today? Is it the Cracker Barrel logo? Is it windmills? Is it Bad Bunny? Is it the Nobel Prize? Or is it the turkey vagina slapping around over my chin? I'm not sure we're even allowed to show his neck on TV. Wouldn't it be funny if the FCC fined us?
Change Kimmel jokes that if self-praise were a renewable resource, Trump could power the nation for decades. The man compliments himself with the precision of a GPS stuck on recalculate. It's less self-confidence and more performance art. He doesn't lead with humility. He leads with volume. The louder he proclaims victory, the less anyone believes it. Every statement, every press conference, every tweet becomes a theatrical declaration designed for applause rather than outcomes. Pritzker's politics, by contrast, are measured and grounded in results. His governance exposes Trump's theater for what it is, noise without melody. When the cameras fade, only one delivers results that matter. The other remains addicted to applause, even if it's just the echo of his own voice. Kimmel closes his roast by imagining how history will categorize Trump, not as a statesman or strategist, but as the world's first self-produced political sitcom, where scandals double as plot twists and policies sound like punchlines. Historians won't need archives. They'll need laugh tracks. The reruns write themselves, looping endlessly between outrage and amusement. Meanwhile, Pritzker continues governing, patiently cleaning up the debris left behind, like a man restoring a carnival long after it burned down, methodical, deliberate, and real, while the spectacle marches on in endless self-congratulation. Now,
his annual checkup tomorrow at Walter Reed Hospital. This will be his second yearly checkup this year. He had one 6 months ago, but it feels like it's been a year, so they decided to do it again. And it's smart to do this sort of thing before Halloween. If he gets a clean bill of health, he can continue his annual tradition of eating all Eric's trick-or-treat candy. Checkup will take place in the morning tomorrow, but the White House has already released the results. He is 7'2", 180 pounds, and his erections can deadlift a Cybertruck.
Trump's presidency may continue, but the laughter grows sharper, cutting through the illusion that volume equals vision. What once sounded like confidence now echoes as chaos, and every attempt to control the narrative becomes fodder for late-night monologues. Kimmel delivers the comedy with surgical precision, slicing through layers of self-praise to expose the confusion beneath. Every gesture, every tweet, every claim becomes material, no exaggeration required. It's reality itself performing in clown shoes. Pritzker, by contrast, governs with calm efficiency, managing a state while the federal circus spins itself dizzy. The juxtaposition is striking. One man treats the presidency like a performance. The other treats leadership like responsibility. Each punchline lands because it isn't manufactured, it's drawn straight from current events. The louder Trump boasts, the more reality rolls its eyes, and the more material Kimmel has to dissect. The result is a peculiar tableau. America caught between satire and governance. Kimmel doesn't invent the jokes. Trump provides them wholesale, from self-congratulatory press briefings to policies that read like improvisation exercises. Meanwhile, Pritzker continues to deliver results, quietly cleaning up the messes left in the wake of spectacle. As long as Donald Trump remains president, the content machine won't stop, each headline writing the next season of the world's most unintentional political comedy.